Hello and welcome to the week 9, day 2 video lecture. We're going to discuss things like ethical communication, finalizing P3 to include more about citations if you had questions about that. So this week is about revising P3. Make it as succinct and credible as possible. On top of that, you should be worrying about design features, proper citation methods, and primary source integration. Did you interview? Did you survey? Or did you use online observation? And did you include a picture to represent and discuss your primary research? So before we get to that, let's discuss one other aspect of P3 and of professional writing in general, and that's ethical communication. On the screen, there are 3 columns, one for legal, one for moral, and one for in good taste. So ask yourself, if you had to place a check mark in only one column for importance in relation to professional communication and ethics, which column would you choose? If we were in a face-to-face class, I would conduct some primary research of my own by having you write your preference on a sticky note, place it on the board, and we could, in a visual sense, see together how people feel about this question. And those sticky notes, they would be in different colors. And again, we could quickly count the sentiment behind each column and discuss it. Despite cool visuals or meeting face to face or in this online modality, the columns themselves, all 3 of them, matter in different ways concerning ethics in professional communication. So really all 3 of them have equal importance. Ethical communication is fundamental to thoughtful decision-making and responsible thinking. It's about developing and nurturing relationships and building communities within and across contexts, cultures, channels, and media. Ethical communication is also about accepting responsibility for the messages you convey to others and the short-term or long-term consequences, the results of your communication, even if you didn't intend any harm. Whether you are talking to a close friend or addressing the workforce in an all-staff meeting, your message has to be truthful and consistent with your value system. Misleading listeners and delivering a message that is clandestine or not truthful is antithetical to ethical communication. And really, it's kind of shitty. So why? Furthermore, ethical communication might extend to the medium or even the language you choose for delivering your message. Using a medium that limits your audience or delivering a message in a language that your audience does not fully understand limits how your message is received and perceived. For example, if you're speaking to an audience of primarily deaf or hearing impaired employees, ethical communication requires having a sign language interpreter. Lack of ethical communication leads others to question your professional and personal integrity and to wonder if they can trust your message or even trust you. Once you've lost people's respect and their trust, you have to work twice as hard to get it back. And sometimes you can't get it back, no matter how hard you try. To avoid unethical professional situations, strive to instill the following principles of ethical communications you see on the screen. You're probably wondering, like, what does this have to do with P3 overall? Basically, as you finalize your research summary, I want you to review the tone, the text, and your figure for ethical representation, particularly when discussing The impacted population, remembering that you're writing this to your boss and you're writing about a specific group of people the problem is impacting. And I want you to think of it this way. If it was your city or neighborhood, or maybe it's an internal business problem, would you want your narrative co-opted and shared in a patronizing or manipulative way? Therefore, be cognizant of empathy and common sense when telling the story of others. And that's where ethical communication and thinking about what you say and how you say it is important, not only to this draft, but moving forward in professional communication. Going back to revising the draft itself. This is it's a text-based draft. You've done this before. Project 1 was very text heavy, right? There were no images. There's one image for P3, but like the final draft for P1, you need to show your changes to the text with manual markups. This means using strike through for stuff that you want to delete and a different color, like red, for words that you wish to add. However, for design features that you're going to change, just like with Project 2, you don't have to tell me or show me you're moving the picture around or that you're making it look more like a memo. Just commit those kinds of design changes to the memo and worry more about showing me your text-based changes. The password for the assignment that's going to require it is Years and Years. It's a very obscure HBO limited series, but really amazing, particularly if you like dystopian stuff or stuff looking at the impacts of tech. It's a cool show. Going back to the design features of the memo, now you should be concerned with making the memo look its best. I suggest looking up memo templates on Microsoft Word, canva.com, or other free, please, free templates that you can use online and manipulate as you want to make them look professional and functional. To that end, I'm going to remind you that whatever design template that you choose, make sure the little things in the corner or in the header, the design features that make it look a little cooler or make it look like a memo, whatever, make sure they're not eclipsing your text or eclipsing anything important or overlapping on your screen grab of your primary research. I've seen that happen. Make sure that you properly crop, style, and caption your figure. Once that's done, discuss the relevance of the figure in the text. You've already done this for Project 2, but now you're doing it for information you collected that primary research. Maybe your discussion of the figure is going to take place in the causes of the problem section. Maybe you decide, no, this is more exemplifying explaining the problem itself, so I'm going to put it there. Or maybe you decide that tweet or screen grab of Google Maps, whatever, maybe it is more speaking to the impacted population, and so you're going to put the figure there. You can put the figure wherever you want in a main body section. It shouldn't be in the intro. It shouldn't be in the conclusion. It should be where you're actually going to discuss the relevance of the primary research. For the secondary sources, properly cite where you're getting the supplementary stats and information from those secondary sources, because even though you have that primary research, there's still gaps in knowledge, right? In the background or explaining the problem. That's why you went and found those secondary sources, the 2 articles or an article in a video. When you're citing these secondary sources, do not use the old standard of MLA or APA that you're used to from other classes. Even if some of the student samples show this, you want a better grade And so strive to use just footnotes, endnotes, or hyperlinks. Find the professional citation method that is consistent with your industry standards. As for primary research, you don't have to cite that per se, because the caption you add to your figure and your analysis of the figure is going to serve as your citation. Maybe you're wondering what is a footnote or what an endnote is. So let's discuss. Footnotes are placed at the bottom of a page. They cite references or comment on a designated part of the text above it. For example, say you want to add an interesting comment to a sentence you've written, but the comment's not directly related to the topic of your paragraph. In this case, add a symbol for a footnote. It's usually a little number. Then at the bottom of the page, you reprint that symbol or number and insert your comment. There's an example of a footnote on the screen. You can see they're having that discussion. They have a little number at the end where they got that fact from. They follow up with that number at the bottom of the page. And this can happen for several pages because you're going to have several instances of citations. So, but what's the difference between a footnote and an endnote? The only real difference between a footnote and an endnote is that there's different placement. Footnotes appear at the bottom of the relevant page, like you see on the screen, whereas endnotes are going to appear at the end of your document cumulatively. If you want your reader to read those notes right away, footnotes can grab their attention. Endnotes, on the other hand, might seem, I don't know, less intrusive, like they won't interrupt the flow of your paper. Not to say that they're bad. Either one, footnotes or endnotes, can be used for this assignment, and either citation method has its own pluses or minuses, or, you know, depending on how you like the look or not. Hang on one second. Okay, just had to quiet little guy in the background. Let's review another citation method, and that would be hyperlinks. It's a different approach. Instead of adding a tiny number at the end of a fact, like with a footnote or an endnote, you're instead going to highlight and add a link to direct the reader to where you got that information from. It's essentially, again, a lot like a footnote or endnote, except there's no little number or symbol, and the reader can click to follow that secondary source information and get to it right away. Finally, if you properly use a professional citation method, endnotes, hyperlinks, footnote, you don't need a reference or works cited page. If you're using endnotes, you do need that additional page at the end. However, if you want to use this additional page with hyperlinks, you can, but it's not needed, even if the student samples show otherwise. Now let's look at the assignment for day 2. If you have been accessing the modules, I really hope you have, you'll notice they're a little different. We're on week 9, and based on repeated suggestions I saw on the midterm course evaluations, which was an optional thing, and it's not a midterm exam, I realized I could streamline the look of each module by taking the spaces where the readings were at, the extra credit or the CFF, and just creating separate links for those where you could follow up on them on your own, and it's not making the module look so intimidating, right? So that's why the modules are going to look different as we're going along. And we get to 9.2, and we see that there's only one assignment for day 2, and there might be extra credit, but you can follow up on that on your own. And we open it up and we have a list of how we can improve our draft. And I'm going to have this open, and that's my husband's face. Enjoy. And I'm going to open up a sample pretending like it's mine. And after I have looked at the CFF, or maybe I've looked at the CFF and I have this open and I made some textual changes and maybe I added some stuff and I don't know, I took some stuff out and I realized, oh, I want to add another little footnote or endnote, whatever. I might do that as well. I'm going to do all of those things. First, I'm going to do my text-based changes because that is what part 1 is asking me to do. It's asking me to revise the draft, and that's what you should do first. You should attempt every assignment, especially a more complex one like this, in stages. So the first stage is the proofreading part. The next part is checking your citations, checking to see that you did not fall back on MLA or APA. You attempted a citation method you're probably not used to, and that's either hyperlinks, endnotes, or what we see on here, footnotes. They're accessible right away. If we were going to use endnotes, we still could use all the numbers, but all of these would be on a cumulative page at the end. It wouldn't say, well, I guess you could say references, but these would just be numbered, the 1 through 5, 4 that the student has. So we're going to check to see that we did them correctly and check to see that these sections in the assignment guidelines have at least one mention of one of our secondary sources. So that adds to your credibility, and it shows that you actually did research for your research memo. Highly important. So check that you've done that. And then the next thing you should do is check your primary research. Did you include an image of your primary research? Does it exemplify something about the online reviews if it's text-based and maybe you used word cloud or word art or Voyant to create an image based on all of those? Or maybe you took all your text-based survey answers and used that, or you have a data visualization of your survey responses, or you just took a few screenshots of tweets. Whatever you did, make sure that it's integrated with the text like project 2, and that it's not just haphazardly placed and it looks weird, that it's not pushing into the margins, so that it's lined up nicely with the margins, and that the caption is as well. I would have to fix that, but it kind of, it's not going to let me do it right now. And then you right click it and you style it and you add a drop box to it, or I really like this approach of framing it. So you make it kind of stand out a little bit. Again, just like project 2, I already have told you that more impactful visuals have some kind of styling around it rather than just letting it be a flat kind of image that's bleeding into the rest of the page and it's hard to tell it apart from everything else. You have that image, you want it to stand out, so why not take an extra second to right click it and do that. After that, check your text and make sure you've mentioned analysis of the figure, why it's important, why you have that primary research in the text of your memo, and you've already done something similar to this in project 2. So it's not so different from something you've already attempted, but now you're talking about your own research, your own figure, and how is it relevant to this larger and local problem. Finally, you're going to USF Rights and submitting it. If before you submit it, you want to check that rubric and see how all the points are allocated, you can do that. And remember to add the password at the bottom or at the top. You can highlight it. You don't have to. Adding years and years somewhere so that you can get the full range of points. You don't miss 3 points. Making sure again that you proofread it and showed me the proofreading with manual revisions, because that's 25 points. You don't do that, you could already drop down to a C. I don't want that for you. You don't want that. You want to show that you follow directions and that you did them correctly. If you have any questions about Module 9 or the new look to Module 9, or even the checklists that have been popping up, do not hesitate to reach out to me. And until next time, and have a great rest of your week.